Hi, writers. Many authors will tell you this true fact. The best writers are readers first. There's so much to learn from other authors. Today, I want to teach you some techniques for mining a mentor text. Once you have the pieces that can inform your work, it's time to get started. As a writer, you might be constantly on the lookout for texts that can serve as mentors and study them for moves you might try. There's a tool that I often use to help me analyze a mentor text. Let's take a look at it. So here's a process that I often use when looking at a mentor text. You may want to print this tool and tape it in your notebook, or just jot some notes in your notebook. That way, when you start studying a text, you can more easily find tips on how this might go. You may have seen this chart in previous writing classes. It's a pretty good process for thinking about how to use a mentor text to inform your writing. Here's how it goes. First, you're going to read the piece. You're going to take notes on the parts that you love. Second, you're going to ask, what did this writer do that I could try too? When I ask this question, I consider what writerly moves these authors are making. I think of things such as ways to structure and order a piece, compelling craft techniques, interesting convention choices, or anything else that kind of pops up and strikes my interest. Next, I'm going to give those moves a name by making a checklist. And finally, I'm going to use that checklist to inform my writing. Now I want to show you this tool in action. For my mentor text, I chose this YouTube video by Jamila Liscott because you might remember I wanted my writing to be inspiring. And I've seen things by this author, and I find Liscott to be pretty inspiring. So my first step is I'm going to read this text and mark the parts I love.
School is just not capturing the brilliance of young people of color and young people from diverse communities. And how is that entrenched in a history that continues to marginalize Black people?
Wow, so I already noticed something that I really liked and that I think that I might want to do in my writing. I noticed that at the beginning, I already know what Liscott's point is. I don't have to keep going and guess. I know what her point is and what she's going to try and teach me. Let's keep watching and see if we can find some more ideas.
When I was younger, like really in my late teens, I started to realize that I was being perceived differently depending on how I spoke, right? So even though I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and I say I'm hood like all day, and I speak African American English, which is a rule-governed, legitimate language, and a powerful one at that, it's not until I speak like this, like if I speak and I master standard English in a particular way, that people perceive me as intellectual.
So I feel like this was a really powerful part too. It made me feel like what she was talking about was really important. So I'm going to pause and ask myself, what is the author doing that I might try? Well, I notice she's using a personal example, and I feel like that's adding credibility to her point. I'm going to write that down. Let's go look for more.
Perceive me as intellectual. When I would go into school and see that these aspects of my identity were not being valued, there was a discomfort there. At some point, I was like, well, why can't I show up in school in this way, right? Because when I'm speaking with my family, when I'm speaking with my friends, I'm the same me. I'm just as intellectual.
Wow, so many interesting parts. I stopped here again, and I'm going to think again. What did the author do? Well, I'm thinking that she actually did two things here. First, she continued to use personal experiences, but rather than being from the same place, they were in a different setting. This showed that her problem wasn't just one instant in time. It happened in multiple times and in multiple places. And I feel like this showed that this is a really big problem because it happens all the time, not just once. Second, I noticed that she included some of the questions, her inner thinking about this problem. So it's not just the experience, it's how the experience felt to her. So did you see how I did that, writers? I started reading through the text. I stopped at places I loved, and I thought, what is the writer doing here that I might try too? So my next steps is to give these moves a name. First, Liscott clearly stated a claim. Next, she used personal experience. Well, wait a minute. From the part after that, I noticed that she used multiple and varied personal experiences. And finally, from the last part, I noticed that she used her own thinking in her writing. So now that I've identified and named the writing moves, I can make a checklist of things that I am going to also try and include in my own writing. So how this might look. In my writing, I'm going to make sure that I clearly state my claim. I'm going to use multiple and varied experiences, and I'm also going to include my own thinking. So let's review the steps for turning a mentor text into a checklist. First, we read the piece and marked the parts we loved. Next, we asked, what did this writer do that I could try too? Third, we gave those authors' moves a name. And fourth, we turned those into a checklist that we can use in our own writing too. Now that you've seen how I might turn a mentor text into a checklist, it's your turn. Maybe look at one of the mentor texts that you found. Maybe you need to find a new mentor text that's really going to help inspire you and your piece. Study it for moves you might try. Then go back to your writing and try and weave in some of the moves you noticed. You got this. Off you go.